Hello, this is Katie Johnson, and I have an incredible tip to share with you today. So I want you to look very carefully at the four images that are on this card with the bird houses. So what you're going to see is that three of them are all the same size. It's this size and shape right here that was punched with the postage stamp punch. Now, Stampin' Up! Only has one punch with any kind of a shape that looks like this, and yet I've got one smaller here. So what I want to do today is to show you a trick for making your punched shapes larger and smaller. So I'm actually going to show you two tricks today. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use a single punch to frame itself. And then the second thing I'm going to show you is how you can do what I did on this card and change the size of a punch. So let's talk about how you can take a single punched shape and actually make it frame itself. This is so easy. So what you want to do is to use your scissors and to cut an X pattern on the one that's going to be the bottom layer. Now, it doesn't have to be a perfect X, but what you do want to do is to look at the shape around the outside and just make sure that where you're choosing to make your cuts that it's symmetrical. The second thing is going to be to put adhesive on the back side of what's going to be the front piece. So I put enough adhesive on there to make sure things will stick, and then I simply want to lay it on here and pick up all four of those, but leaving a little bit of an edge. So now you have, this is so easy, and you can make this work with any size label punch that you have. And then one side at a time, go through and pick up the framing layer. So are you excited? You can, like I say, you can do this with any label punch that you have and or any die cut pieces that you have. But don't go running off to check your label dies and your label punches right now, because I actually have a second trick that I want to show you. Remember I said you can take a punch shape and you can actually make it smaller or make it bigger. So let me show you that. So here's our same label punch that we were just using. And then here is the same thing, except you can see what I did was I made it longer. And here is the same shape, but you can see that what I did was I made it shorter. So let's talk about how to do that. So in order to understand how this is going to work, and therefore understand what you need to do to make one side cut and then the other side cut, it's a little easier to understand when you're making it shorter, and conceptually it's just the next level up when you want to make it longer. Okay, the thing to know about a punch is that when you put your paper in the way you normally do, all right, there's no way to avoid having all edges of it cut at the same time, and that's not what you want. You want to be able to cut this part of the curve, but you don't want it to cut the other side shorter. You want that paper to be able to be longer and slide before it cuts that second side. And likewise, well, with this one, let's talk about that one first of all. So I can take my punch here and I can make it shorter, but not by sticking it in where we normally do, not by sticking it in here, but instead by sticking it in the top. All right, so I don't know, I'm going to show you how difficult this is, and I'm going to show you a really easy trick for making it work. The cutting edge is going to come right here. Let me get a pointer. Bring in my take your pick tool here. So this is the cutting edge right in here. Can you kind of see the, yeah, you can see the white showing through there. I think I got the angle right. Well, that's where you have to get your paper. You have to be able to take this in here because you want it to make a second cut to make it smaller. And that's really hard to do. So just bring a piece of scrap paper in. This scrap paper is going to function like a table. It's going to keep that paper, requiring it to stay in the slits that are already there on the paper. Okay, now we got the pink piece where we want it. Let's get this piece out of the way because we don't need to cut it for any particular reason. And now I can position this where I need it in my punch. I don't know about you, but my fingers are a little big to fit into that space. So we're going to bring in the one tool that every paper crafter needs to have in their crafting area. And that essential thing is a Post-it note. All right, so we've got the sticky side of my Post-it note here, and that is going to be a handle. So this is a fairly symmetrical image here, and I want to cut off one side or the other side. If I try to put it in this way, what's going to happen is I'm going to bump the piece of paper up into the mechanism, the parts of the punch, and I won't be able to put it in very far. Therefore, I'm just going to put it into the other end, because then I can just, go as far as I need to make this as small as I want it. So you want to use this extra piece of paper. It's not going to become part of the project. It's just functioning like a table or like a guide, because now it's really easy to take this, and the white piece of paper is holding my pink piece of paper flat and guiding it into that slit. I want to make sure that it stays stuck to my Post-it note. And you can see now it's already beginning to come together. The Post-it note is just my handle. The white piece of paper was just a guide, like a shoehorn, to help it fit through. And so now I can just look at it and eyeball it and get whatever perfect shape I want. I have the shape I want. Punch. Voila. And now my piece has been cut down into something smaller. All right, so what if I want to make this thing bigger? Same thing. I want to punch only one side at a time. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to use my table. Again, I need to go from the fattest part of my punch. And now remove the guide. Punch the one end. Put the guide back in. Slip that piece of paper back in to the groove. And now you can see I can make this as long or as short as I want. Voila. Shorter, original size, longer. Super easy. Remember that a piece of paper provides a really helpful guide, and you may find that Post-it notes are a really useful tool. So I know you're super excited to go off and check your label punches and find out what you have that might work with this technique. But before you go, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel or followed my Facebook page, please take a minute and do that now, because that way you'll get notifications next time I come on with something. Thanks for watching and have an incredible day. This is Katie Johnson.